Hey friends, welcome to our Midweek Moment. Pastor Nicole here. So glad you've joined us. Well, this week we wrapped up our sermon series, Connect, called into community, where we've been talking about what it means to be a community with one another. We talked about how to gather in community, how to grow in community, and how to serve in community. And at the end of the service, I shared a little bit about a word that reappeared to me this past week or last week. It's the word Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means I am who I am because you are who you are. And it comes from the Zulu tribe in Africa. And it's a word about what community means. And I talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to share a little bit more about why it is important for you to be who you are so that I can be who I am, and that I am who I am so that you can be who you are. When we talk about community, it's really important that we bring our authentic selves into community. Sometimes in community, we feel like we have to pretend to be somebody we're not, pretend to be different, pretend to, I don't know, just we want to fit in. And so we might pretend to like something that we don't necessarily like, or we might pretend to have more or have less than we have. We might pretend to do any sort of thing in order to feel like we fit into the community. But what Ubuntu teaches us is that I can only be who I am if you are who you are. And if you're pretending to be somebody else, then we cannot be an authentic community with one another because one of us isn't being who we truly are. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that and to think a little bit about that this week. As we come into community with one another, are we truly being our whole true selves? Because God created us to be who we are. We don't have to pretend to be somebody else. We don't have to try to be liked by somebody else. When we're in true community with one another, we have to be who we are so that the other person can be who they are. Because if we pretend to be somebody we're not, then somebody else might feel like they have to be somebody that they're not, that they have to pretend to be somebody that they're not. And that is just not true community. You see what I'm saying? So in order for me to authentically be who I am, you need to authentically be who you are. And in order for you to authentically be who you are, I have to authentically be who I am so that the Spirit can bring us all together, can bind us together in God's love and in God's purpose. So I really, really love that word Ubuntu. I need to get like a drawing of it or something to hang on my wall in my office because it is one of those words that I think is so powerful if we really think about the true meaning of it. I was introduced to that word several years ago at church camp where we were talking about what it means to be in community with one another. And like I said, it re-emerged this week at a conference that I was at, and I thought, oh my gosh, how did I forget this word? It's so perfect for our sermon series that we've been going through. So I wanted to share it with you and to have you really think about it, to really dwell on it, to plant the seeds of that word in your heart so that it will continue to grow. That idea that I can only be who I am if you are who you are, and that you can only be who you are if I am who I am. Do you hear that accountability that brings to community? It gives us this purpose of authenticity, right? Like it's that accountability of like, look, if I'm not who I am, then I'm harming other people because they can't be who they are. And if they're not being who they are, then they're harming me because I can't be who I am. And I really like that idea of like we're held in accountability with one another. And that accountability is around that authenticity piece, that we have to be who God created us to be. We have to delight in who God created us to be if we are going to be in community with one another. It'd be so boring if we were all the same, right? Paul talks about that in his letter to the Corinthians. He says, the body can't all be eyes, can't all be ears. We need all of the different parts. And so that's why it's so important that we are who God created us to be and that we authentically live that out in community. So if you ever feel like you're too much for a community or you're not enough for the community, maybe you're in the wrong community. Don't ever make yourself smaller because you feel like you don't fit in. Don't ever try to make yourself bigger because you feel like you don't fit in. Just be who you are. It is a gift that you give to the rest of the community to be authentically yourself. And I promise I'll try my best to be my authentic self if you try your best to be your authentic self. And that way we can be in Ubuntu. We can be in community with each other because I am who I am, because you are who you are. I hope you have a great rest of your week. We hope you will come and join us this weekend for worship. We're going to have a special guest preacher who's going to be fabulous. You won't want to miss that. And then in 2 weeks, or a week from Sunday, we're going to start our Halloween series, which is always so fun and my favorite. So we'll see you soon. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Go and be who God created you to be. See you next time. Bye.